My girlfriend doesn't want to marry me because she's still married to her best friend. That's why now her brother is helping me sue them. I've been with my girlfriend, Tanya, for a little over 5 years. We're both in our early 30s. We lived together for 3 of those years. We talked about future plans, kids, trips, everything. She was working on her MBA when we moved in together, and money was tight, so I covered most of the rent, utilities, groceries, and I also helped her with tuition and debt. I never kept count because I thought we were a team. I had a good job, and I figured once she graduated, things would even out. A year ago, I proposed, and I expected her to say yes because it felt like the natural next step. She got very emotional but said she wasn't ready. She asked for more time. She said she loved me but wasn't in the right headspace to get married. It hurt, but I didn't take it as rejection. I thought maybe she just wanted to finish school or move forward in her career first. I respected that. The thing is, we weren't a casual couple just seeing where things would go. She had access to my accounts. She used my car while hers was in the shop for months. I co-signed a $25,000 loan so she could finish her final year without working full-time. She called me her partner in front of everyone. I had no reason to think we weren't serious. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. I was house hunting. I wanted both of our names on the deed. When I spoke to a mortgage advisor, they asked for documents from both of us, so I submitted her information. That's when it came out, she was still legally married. I thought it was a mistake. She always referred to her ex, Leo, as her best friend. They'd known each other since college. I never liked how close they were, but she always insisted it was completely platonic. He was at family parties, sometimes came on holidays, always got the first hug from her mom, those kinds of things. I didn't love it, but I didn't push it. I trusted her. And I should mention, I didn't even know he was her ex. When I confronted her, she said they got married 7 years ago in what she called a green card situation, that it wasn't real, just paperwork to avoid his deportation. She said they were just friends and there was nothing romantic. She claimed she didn't bring it up because it was no longer relevant. But to me, it was. Not just because she hid it from me, but because her whole family knew. Apparently, everyone knew for years. I was around them constantly, birthdays, holidays, celebrations. Last summer, I helped her mom with yard work while she and her sister drank wine outside. Everyone pretended we were the couple. No one said a word. I asked her directly if there had ever been anything romantic. She said no, never like that. But she hadn't filed for divorce. She swore she was going to fix it before we got married and that she was just waiting for the right time. I don't believe her anymore. The more I review the timeline, the more I feel like I was just used. I've done some math over the last few days. I've spent over $80,000 in the past 5 years between rent, bills, food, travel, helping her pay off her credit cards, that $25,000 loan, car repairs, and school expenses. And it's not just about the money. I did all that believing we were building a life together. I wouldn't have gotten so involved if I had known I was basically the other guy. She insists it's just friendship and not what I think. But I don't understand how someone can say they love you and want a future with you while staying married to someone else and hiding it from you for 5 years. Then there's the small detail that what she did is considered a crime, marrying someone to give them residency is illegal. I asked why she didn't tell me sooner. She said it was because she didn't want to lose me, which makes no sense. That's not protecting someone, that's making sure they don't leave while you keep using them. I haven't taken official legal action yet, but I've started talking to a lawyer. I don't know what kind of case it would be, maybe fraud, maybe unjust enrichment. All I know is I was used, and I feel like an idiot for not seeing it. She's begging me not to tell anyone. She says she's going to get divorced, that she's sorry, and she'll fix everything for me. But I'm past the I'm sorry stage. This wasn't a little lie. It was 5 years of deception backed by her entire family. Leo, by the way, is still in the picture. He lives a few blocks away. He's always been around. I'm not trying to be dramatic or vengeful. I just want to know if this is something I can take legal action over. Because I didn't spend 5 years investing in a future that now looks completely different. I don't know if it's true that she only married him for residency, or if they were romantically involved and she's trying to downplay it while still seeing her old ex. And honestly, I don't care to untangle all that anymore. I just want to know how to recover what I put into a lie. Update 1. At first, I didn't plan on speaking with her family, but I needed answers. I thought maybe someone around her would be willing to admit this was wrong, or at least acknowledge that they had lied to me. I wasn't expecting apologies or anything like that, but I did hope for some honest information, not just Tanya's version. I started with her mom. We were close, and I expected a bit of honesty from her. She used to call me her second son, so I thought I'd get something different. But when I mentioned that Tanya had never told me she was still married and that everyone knew, she gave me the worst response: it was never serious. Just paperwork. You're making drama over nothing. That honestly chilled me. I asked how it could not be serious when she was legally bound to another man for 5 years while with me. She just said, "Leo is part of the family, and at the end of the day, you played the husband, so what are you complaining about?" I was speechless. Her dad was even worse. I always had a feeling he didn't like me. I assumed he was just a reserved guy, but now I see he never took me seriously. Then he said they hadn't deceived me. Her sister, who used to call me her big brother, just stood there pretending she didn't hear anything, not a single word. They all saw me as a walking wallet. Someone to support Tanya while she figured out her next move. Someone to hold her up while she found herself. That same night, I got a text from her younger brother, Chris. We weren't super close, but we had hung out a few times. He told me he needed to talk in person, that it was important. He was the only one I hadn't spoken to yet, because I figured I'd just get more of the same. We met the next day. What he told me completely floored me. The betrayal was worse than I imagined. First, he told me to start checking where the money I gave Tanya had gone, and I'd find answers. For example, the money I gave her, thinking it was to finance a project related to her thesis, had actually gone into a business account in her and Leo's name. Chris told me they were planning to start house hunting once Leo's new business had at least 6 months of revenue. Tanya told the family it was an investment property, but he suspected otherwise. I felt sick. Not just because of the money, but because I'd been sleeping next to someone for 5 years who was basically draining me, and who apparently planned to keep doing so until they had taken everything they could. The next morning, I sent everything to my lawyer. I didn't even wait to process it emotionally. I just wanted it off my plate and for the lawyer to find a solution. For him, this counted as civil fraud, and there was enough to dig deeper. Depending on how the accounts and loans were handled, and the kind of paper trail we could build, this could even cross into criminal territory, especially if there were falsified or misleading statements. I called Chris afterward and thanked him. He sounded guilty but relieved. He said he didn't agree with any of it, but the rest of the family told him to stay out of it. He kept saying, "I'm sorry for not saying something sooner." At least he was the only one who did the right thing, even if it was late. Without him, I might still be in the dark. Tanya hasn't reached out since I told her I knew the truth. Which honestly tells me more than any excuse she could give. The total amount she received from me still isn't fully calculated, but it's even worse than I initially thought. I'm not trying to stay calm anymore. I'll do everything I can to get my money back. Update 2. My lawyer told me we're starting with a civil lawsuit, and depending on what comes out during discovery, we might refer the case for criminal investigation if necessary. That gives me even more peace of mind. There's a real chance I won't get all the money back, they probably don't have it, but if they pay with prison time, I'll get some closure. That's not to say we're not going to go after everything they have and leave them with nothing. That way, they might even prefer prison, where they'd at least get 3 meals a day and a roof. I'm not talking to Tanya because my lawyer advised against it. But she's been texting, which is good for our case. Blocking her could prevent her from saying something incriminating. In one message, she wrote that she did love me, but she was just trying to help Leo because he was a good friend. Then she asked if we could talk and said she wanted to fix everything for me. I didn't reply because I'm supposed to have minimal contact with her. But that only made her keep texting. She offered me $10,000 to make everything go away. We're talking about a total that could reach $160,000, and she offers 10? Probably even more when you count interest and damages. 2 days later, Leo showed up at my work. He sat in the lobby like he was waiting and intercepted me as I passed by. I didn't even notice him until he started talking. He was smiling the whole time, saying things like, "This doesn't have to get ugly," and that he understood why I was angry but I needed to be smart about my next steps. He said I was never going to get my money back and that if this went to trial, Tanya would just say it was all a misunderstanding, that I gave her the money voluntarily and everything else was just jealousy. He also made it clear that Tanya would say whatever it took to make sure he didn't get blamed. Luckily, he said all this in a public place, with people around who were willing to testify for me. I didn't say a single word. I went straight to security. They kicked him out of the building, and that same day I filed a police report. My lawyer and I are now building a full financial timeline. He's also working with all the new evidence. We'll be requesting subpoenas and gathering every piece of proof we need to make the trial as straightforward as possible. Chris agreed to testify if this goes to court. Tanya hasn't reached out again, maybe because she realized that doesn't help her anymore. But I know she knows what's coming. And now that Leo showed his face, I assume she's either panicking or spinning more lies. Either way, I'm done being part of it. Update 3. After Leo showed up at my workplace and basically tried to intimidate me into dropping everything, things have actually started moving in our favor at a good pace. With Leo's threats, things are looking pretty solid for us. For example, we filed a motion to freeze all of Tanya and Leo's accounts, including their business accounts, and it was granted. They currently have no access to any of it. Too bad Leo's new business relied on that money, but as long as the trial goes on, he won't be able to keep running it with my money and will need to find another source of income or shut it down. Luckily for us, he hadn't created a separate entity for the business since he was just starting it and testing the waters before making it official. We've also been given some documents that we're now reviewing to strengthen the case. One of the addresses tied to Leo's business location was leased under my name, but the signature on the lease wasn't mine, it didn't even resemble mine. Turns out they used my full name with a made-up signature to rent an office 6 months ago. It was entirely forged, which makes this even more serious. That lease was filed along with one of my old pay stubs and a utility bill from our former apartment. I had no idea they had access to that, so now, in addition to everything else, they used my identity to sign a commercial lease. Because of that, we started the process of subpoenaing the leasing company to obtain the original application. It's been proven that they forged my signature since the landlord never saw me and only dealt with Leo. More evidence against them. Tanya had access to all my personal information for years, and I trusted her with everything. She used that trust to create a paper trail I didn't even know existed, and now I would be the one liable if they ever stopped paying that lease. As if all of this weren't enough, her parents showed up at my apartment 2 days later. Her mom was already crying when I opened the door, and her dad came in angry. They brought a proposal to pay off all their daughter's debt in exchange for me dropping the lawsuit, because they knew it would have legal consequences that would follow Tanya for the rest of her life. You know, nobody wants to hire someone with a fraud record. I told them the figure my lawyer and I had in mind, and they said there was no way they could come close. The most they could possibly get was $45,000. Well, that's a long way from what we're expecting and even further from what we're going after. And it would also spare her from facing any real legal consequences beyond money. At this point, that doesn't seem very fair to someone like Tanya. I asked them to leave. They didn't. So I took out my phone, started recording, and told them they had 30 seconds to leave or I would call the police. That made them go, but not before her father warned me that I would regret blowing things out of proportion. I sent the recording to my lawyer since we're documenting everything related to Tanya, Leo, and her entire family. That same night, Chris texted me again. He said he found an audio file he'd forgotten to send me. He said it turned his stomach, and after listening to it, I completely understand. Tanya was talking to Leo about how I was starting to ask too many questions about the finances. She said, I just need to keep him entertained a little longer until we can pull out all the money. She was referring to my bank account. She literally said she needed to keep me happy until they could find a clean way out. She even mentioned making me believe she was ready to get married, just long enough. It was all fake, even the part where she cried and said she wasn't ready for marriage, fake. She just wanted to avoid commitment until she was sure they had gotten everything they needed from me. My lawyer called it the smoking gun. He said that audio, combined with the financial documents, the forged lease, and Chris's testimony, was more than enough for a full civil lawsuit and probably enough to open a criminal case too, one with serious consequences. At this point, we're talking about identity theft, financial fraud, document forgery, unjust enrichment, premarital deception, and possibly conspiracy to defraud. We're currently finalizing the lawsuit to file it in court. The total amount we're claiming is $184,000 in direct damages, money proven and traceable from my accounts, loans, rent, and credit card payments linked to Tanya or Leo. With interest and punitive damages, it could exceed $250,000. Now you see why their offers aren't even close to acceptable. Tanya hasn't tried to contact me again since the last time she offered me $10,000 to disappear. Leo hasn't shown up either, and if he does, I'll call the police immediately. I'm done playing with either of them. Mediation is next. My lawyer doesn't think they'll agree to a deal that favors us, because that would mean admitting guilt. But he says it's worth it to show the judge we made the effort, even if they ignore it. I'm trying to keep a cool head, but I'd be lying if I said I'm not still angry. I'm not just mad about the money, I'm mad because I genuinely cared about her. I gave her 5 years, my trust, and more support than I've ever given anyone else. And she used every bit of that to drain me while pretending I was the man she loved. Next stop is court, and I'm not stopping until they give me back every last cent and serve time in prison, or give me back part of the money and serve a lot of time in prison. Update 4. The mediation happened a few days ago. I've had some time to process it, and I'm still not entirely sure how I feel. Relieved, angry, exhausted, probably all of that at once. Yes, but we got some justice, which is already saying a lot. My lawyer made his case while Tanya cried the entire time. Then came Chris, who testified via video call because he didn't want to be there in person. After that, her lawyer didn't have much left to say. They tried to push for a private resolution and asked if I would accept a smaller settlement in exchange for keeping it out of court. No, I didn't even consider it. We had already filed the lawsuit, and I wasn't going to back down. Leo didn't show up. He had been legally summoned and chose not to appear. That's when my lawyer made the move he'd been waiting for. He filed a motion with the mediator to refer the case for possible criminal charges, including identity theft and financial fraud. Tanya's face turned pale. Everything moved fast from that point. Her lawyer requested a recess. An hour later, they returned offering a full settlement. This is what I got. $90,000 in restitution, payable over 5 years. Tanya has to liquidate assets, including a car and some of her business equipment, and establish a payment schedule through the court. Full responsibility for the joint $25,000 loan, now legally transferred to her name. I am completely released from that debt. A permanent no-contact order that includes her parents. A signed written statement admitting to financial misconduct that my lawyer can submit if we proceed with a criminal complaint. The mediator closed the session saying that the criminal matter was now in the hands of the district attorney's office. I don't know if they'll press charges, but my lawyer says they'll likely investigate based on all the evidence we presented. In exchange for the settlement, Tanya might end up facing lesser charges for cooperating and settling. Leo, for not showing up, will likely face harsher consequences if it goes to criminal trial. Leo still has to face us in civil court for the part of the debt he owes me, and not showing up will look very bad in front of the judge when that happens. I'm still in contact with Chris. He was basically disowned by the rest of his family. He did the right thing, even though it cost him people who should have done the right thing from the start. Now we have to wait and see how the rest unfolds and what the end of my story looks like. Because even though we've made progress, this is just the beginning, with many things still to be resolved. There's a civil lawsuit against Leo, plus criminal charges against both Leo and Tanya that I don't know how will turn out or if they'll even make it to trial. But we're pretty optimistic that things will go the way we want them to. Update 5. Yesterday the trial ended for the lawsuit against Leo for the money he and Tanya took from me. Honestly, not showing up for the mediation really backfired on him, because he has now been ordered to sell all his significant assets and to set up a payment plan to repay the full amount, plus damages, interest, and legal fees. You could say the final amount was nearly double what he would have paid had he just shown up that day. He argued that he didn't have money to afford proper legal representation, but to the judge, that wasn't a valid excuse since there were other ways to deal with the situation. Leo did have some money saved, earnings from work before starting his business. Money he didn't want to touch because he saw it as too risky for his venture. But clearly, he didn't think the same about my money. Well, that money now belongs to me. The criminal trials are just beginning, and things don't look good for him. At least Tanya can show that she's settled, whereas Leo's future looks really dark, and I'm not just talking about the cellmate he'll meet when he drops the soap in the shower. The prosecutor wants to request 15 years for him. We know he likely won't get the full amount, but if we get half, I'll be satisfied. As for Tanya, the prosecutor asked for 10, considering the mediation deal. It's a significant reduction for her, at least trying to make things right. If she gets half, which would be 5 years, she'll spend the same time behind bars that I spent in the relationship. I wouldn't complain. Update 6. The bets in the comment section favored a 7-year sentence for Leo and 3 for Tanya. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you see it, one of the least voted options won. Get ready, because here's the announcement: Leo got 9 years in prison, and Tanya got 7. Tanya's sentence surprised me the most, but there's a logical reason. She was also found guilty of immigration fraud for marrying her friend to get him a green card. If it hadn't been for that, she probably would have received 3 or 4 years. Both were found guilty of forming an illicit partnership to defraud me and the state. This changes our payment plan, as I still have to recover half of what they were sentenced to pay me. But prison doesn't erase their debts to me. Worse for them, interest will continue to accrue while they wait to get out and start working to pay me back. I know it's better to get the money now than years later, but I've already recovered a significant part. Meanwhile, they'll spend a good chunk of time behind bars, knowing that when they're out, their future will still be marked by a debt they'll have to face. They'll have to work hard for years to repay everything they took from me, plus the interest that piled up. Every day of their miserable lives, they'll have to think about being locked up in there. And when they get out, things won't be much better. And they better not drop the soap, because their whole lives will flash before their eyes as that bar of soap falls slowly to the floor. It's already bad enough that Leo is living through this, to now receive some manly love in the showers. This is how a life gets ruined through greed, deception, and dishonesty.